Perfect. Welcome everyone to the new year's Dependency-Track community meeting. I hope everyone had a great start into the new year. Happy New Year, of course, to everyone. From the organizational standpoint, as always, community meetings are being recorded and they will be uploaded to YouTube later. The slides you're seeing right now will be published to the Dependency-Track community GitHub repository. Please use the Zoom chat to ask questions during the presentation. If you cannot use the Zoom chat for some reason, please let me know. I think you can unmute yourself. And then I will make sure to unlock the Q&A functionality, but it should work already. And as always, there will be a Q&A section towards the end of the presentation, so you can ask each other questions, ask the core team, or me in this case, questions, and so on and so forth. It's open floor, basically. Also, as always, we would love to host you here if you have something to say about some cool stuff you built with Dependency-Track, if you have grudges or anything else about Dependency-Track that you want to share, if you have improvements you want to suggest, related designs to the system, anything you want and you want to get feedback on, this is a good place to present these things. Just let us know, ping us on Slack, via email, whatever have you. Let us know in the Q&A later. We would love to host you here. As for today, for the agenda, I will go over the past release or releases, version 4.13.6 in this case. I will give a quick update on the upcoming release, which is version 4.14.0. I will also share Telemetry Insights as last time. And I will give an update on the version 5 that we're currently mostly working on. And as I mentioned, Q&A at the very end. For the past releases, version 4.13.6 was released on November 17th. It fixes a vulnerability in the, or an XSS, a cross-site scripting vulnerability in the welcome message. So for everyone who doesn't know, in the administration, you can configure a welcome message that is being displayed on top of the login screen. So you can, for example, include your company logo there or a message that says, hey, this is the Dependency-Track system of company so-and-so. And it turned out you could just embed arbitrary HTML that wasn't sanitized in there. It is now being sanitized. We use the, what is it called? A popular XSS prevention library. I forgot the name at the moment. DOM Purify, right? So this is now fixed. Also, there was another vulnerability that was disclosed to us about XML external entity injection via the validation of cyclone-dx bombs in XML format. This was a vulnerability in the cyclone-dx library that we use. I think most people these days use JSON cyclone-dx bombs, but just in case, like if you expose this to the open internet, which is questionable, but you should update to fix this vulnerability. It also added a new container image variant based on Alpine Linux, which is about 55% smaller than the Debian-based default version. Has fewer operating system package vulnerabilities, etc., etc. So if you are, for example, subject to compliance scans in your companies, all your images need to be clean, free from vulnerabilities, etc., this would be a better option for you. And many, many more fixes. I would just refer you to the respective changelog here. For the upcoming release, which is version 4.14.0, the main improvement that we have here is the ecosystem-aware version comparison. So, for example, if you have a package that uses the APK type or a package URL that has the APK type, we will now use the Alpine Linux version comparison algorithm instead of like one generic comparison algorithm that gets things wrong most of the time. In this case, you can see this version has like a weird suffix. It uses date-based versioning together with the normal-based, like the normal versioning of 6.6. It uses revisions, etc. If you use just a generic comparison algorithm, it will stumble over things like this. But with the ecosystem-aware comparison, it would be it's much more accurate. Yeah, so again, better accuracy for vulnerability analysis, more reliable version matching for policies. Another major thing that we will be adding in this version is incremental OSV mirroring. So at the moment, if you enable the OSV integration in Dependency-Track, every day at least you're downloading the entire OSV database and then ingesting that into the database, comparing has something changed, did something not change, and updating it accordingly, which consumes apparently a lot of resources on a daily basis. Now that it is incremental, only things that changed since you last successfully mirrored the OSV database will be imported. We will also support bearer token authentication for repositories. So if you have internal Artifactory instances or Nexus Repository Manager, you can now use bearer tokens to authenticate with them instead of just username and password. We will support the CycloneDX component scope, which will then make accessible stuff like whether the component is required or optional. Just for context, if you have test dependencies in your project, they will most likely be labeled as optional. And having this context gives you allows you to better prioritize fixing of findings or outdated components. If something is optional, then probably it isn't shipped in your production artifact and doesn't need to be addressed as soon. We will also support filtering by EPSS scores in the global vulnerability audit screen and many more enhancements, of course. And we are planning to release this within the next 2 weeks. For context, there will be no version 4.13.7. So this will be the next release. For Telemetry Insights, last time I shared it for the first time, I think. And based on the data that we get, we can see that we have over 5,000 unique instances checking in on a daily basis now. Over 330 of them are new since November. So since the last time I shared this data, we can also see that the majority of the instances reporting in are either on the latest version or the version before that. So I think that's a good sign. On the other hand, we do appear to have some lag. So some people are still on older versions. I think part of that could be explained maybe with deployment freezes during November and December. I know some companies or some organizations do not do deployments during that time. But in general, I think this is a good-ish distribution that most people are on the latest-ish versions. As for the databases, which we also track, if you will, we were positively surprised that most people are already on Postgres. For a bit of background, Postgres will be the only database that we support in version 5. So it is a good idea to start or to migrate to Postgres now. The usage of H2, so the embedded default database, if you will, it being the second largest position here is a bit concerning, just because it isn't as reliable as an external database server. It performs worse, but this could be explained perhaps with these being test instances of Dependency-Track. Not sure. We don't have more context, sadly. But yeah, Microsoft SQL Server, only 3.1%, only a few. And apparently, like, there's 2 instances using MySQL. I'm not religious, but bless their souls. I don't know anyone who's using MySQL. If you're one of those people, you're probably manipulating the schema manually. So hats off to you. Also for telemetry, if you are seeing this and you're concerned that, hey, is my instance sending out any information that I don't want it to be sent out? What and how frequently data is collected is documented. The last data sent is viewable on the administration panel. There are multiple ways to opt out, and the collection code is public, so we're not hiding anything. Also, we don't collect stuff like IP addresses, while yes, we technically have access to it, just because when you send a request, we technically could collect your IP address. We don't do that. All we get is a very limited set of data, and we don't store more than that. It's all documented in the documentation. Yeah, and as always, thanks to everyone who keeps this enabled, because it does help us. It does help us a lot. Continuing to the version 5 update. We are still progressing well with removing the Kafka dependency that we originally introduced when starting this project. We have merged the durable execution engine that will replace what Kafka is currently doing for us. For everyone interested in more context, I linked a few pull requests as well as where the code currently lives. Again, don't mind if you cannot click on this at the moment. I will share the slides, or we will share the slides in the GitHub repository later. Yeah, and we are currently migrating the notification publishing functionality to this new engine away from a Kafka-based service. Again, the work is here if you are interested in this. And the side effect of this will be that the notification publisher service will be decommissioned. So one thing less to deploy, one thing less to worry about. This work is currently 90% completed. It's almost done. And the next thing we will tackle is the vulnerability analyzer, which at the moment is also an external service, but will be, just like the notification publisher, be migrated to the durable execution stuff. For everyone interested in how this will perform, I realize this is a bit much to display on a single slide, but we have a little benchmarking setup that, if you're interested, you can play around with this. We use it to test out certain parameters, how they work together, how the system reacts when we change things. But there's a benchmarking setup. It includes a Grafana dashboard that you can tweak as much as you want, play around with it. And this screenshot shows a demo application that is processing 1 million workflow instances, each consisting of 3 steps, also called activities in this context. And just to give you something that we are looking at while working on this, the processing rate of tasks, that it is stable and that it is relatively high. You can see, or what you see here is from a single instance of the demo application. In the setup, you can scale it up to as many instances as you want. And then, of course, the throughput will increase. But yeah, we're looking at this being stable, right? So there are it doesn't fluctuate as the data it produces grows, or as the data you produce grows. Another thing is the surprisingly low resource usage. So this will run embedded in the Dependency-Track installation. There's no separate service to deploy here. So this having a low footprint is important. And it seems like this is what this was achieved. So yeah, if you're interested, you can play around with this. We use it for testing all the time. So yeah, that's there. So previously for the notification publishing, all the notifications directly went to Kafka, which was convenient if you consume notifications from Kafka. By removing the Kafka part now, some users might have relied on consuming notifications from Kafka before. So how you will do it in the future, once the change is implemented, you would just configure this on a per alert basis in the settings. So here you can configure which Kafka cluster to connect to, all the custom settings you might want to apply. So yeah, the functionality is not lost. It's just a different way to configure it now. Yeah, so this is roughly how it will look. It's still in a rough shape. It will probably look a bit better once this is released. Separately, this was kind of a byproduct of working on the configuration system recently. We now support a secure and centralized way of managing secrets. And this works similar to how you know it from GitHub Actions, for example, or other software as a service products, where you can just add secrets by name. You provide a value in the description if you want. It will be displayed here. You can also modify the value, modify the description. You will not be able to see the value ever again once you created the secret or updated it. And then you will be able to reference those secrets in various places of the configuration, right? So if you configure the GitHub advisories feature, you can now reference a secret that resolves to your GitHub Access token. And of course, for notifications as well, for example, for the email notification, you will also be able to reference centrally managed secrets. This functionality supports multiple so-called providers. The default one is based on the database, where you can create, update, modify, delete secrets. There's also one that is backed by environment variables that will, when you start up the application, it will scan all environment variables for a certain prefix. For example, DT_secret_, and then your secret name. It will just read those secrets in and make them accessible via the expressions that you saw before. The downside being there, it's read-only. You cannot create, you cannot delete, but it might be sufficient for your needs if you have a small instance or you need to use infrastructure as code to deploy your instances. That might be a viable option, or for testing, if that floats your boat. In the future, we could support AWS Secret Manager, HashiCorp Vault, whatever have you, anything that can host secrets. We could possibly integrate with it. The default database provider uses envelope encryption, which also means it supports key rotation. This was previously requested a few times. The encryption in Dependency-Track version 4 basically had a secret key that was shared across the entire instance. If you wanted to rotate the secret that encrypts your secret values, you would have to exchange the key and then re-enter all your secret values in the settings over again. Now you can just change your encryption key, and that's that. This is based on Google Tink for anyone familiar with the matter. So we didn't roll our own crypto here. It's based on reliable stuff. This is all documented already in the links for these things. I pasted here. It's still in the snapshot documentation, but once this version is released, it will be in the latest documentation version as well. And those are the updates for today. Now the Q&A. Does anyone have questions, concerns, wants to share anything? Actually, let me check the chat. What is the timeline for V5? Early this quarter. So the aim is to get this released by the end of this quarter. It's a bit ambitious, but that's what we're aiming for.
Great. Hi, Sean Egan here. I just unmuted myself. There's a bunch of features and stuff that we're interested in adding, and we've particularly looked at some of them with IBM around bringing in CBOM data, particularly with the new stuff that has come from CycloneDX 1.7. And so we're trying to figure out what version we should be targeting. Is it version 5 for all new development now, and we shouldn't be adding new features to V4?
That would be preferable, yes. So if it's a larger feature like CBOM support, it would make sense to include in version 5. Okay. Because otherwise we would need to port it from version 4 to version 5, right? Which would just extend the work we need to do.
Extend the work. Okay. And is the user experience on V5 very similar to V4, layout, etc., or is it fundamentally different?
No, so the majority of the user interface, for example, is still the same. There are some things that we changed, but most of it remains the same. The majority of things that were modified are more like back-end functionality that users don't see.
Okay. And there are some features that we want to add there as well, regarding project aggregation, for example. It's not possible to export a combined SBOM for multiple components within a project. I'm guessing most of that functionality would be done in the back end of V5. Is that right?
Yes. But for those things, so I would classify those things as smaller features, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
For smaller features, you can also target version 4, which would have the benefit of getting it into users' hands faster.
Okay.
Yeah. If it is smaller features, it is easier to port them over to version 5, right? If it is more foundational, then better to put it in version 5 directly.
Okay. We are new to Dependency-Track, as in from a development perspective. So we're looking to skill up, but we're also interested in paying for people to help us develop these features. So how do I go about seeing who's interested?
I think one thing we can do is post in the Slack channel. Either you can do it or we can do it if you give us the outline of what you want developed, and what you want to offer. We can, of course, also do social posts, so on LinkedIn. Just let us know what you want to share, and we can amplify.
Okay, perfect.
Alrighty. Any more questions, more input? If not, I think we can cut it short today. Thanks everyone for joining. The recording will be uploaded possibly until tomorrow, and I will post the slides on GitHub immediately. Thanks everyone for joining. See you next time. Bye.